Welcome back to UMS Family. It is a Think Tank Tuesday here on the morning show, and today we have our thinking caps on to discuss all things tax in this edition of Know Your Rights. We continue our conversation with tax specialist at Latita Africa, Thomas Lobban. Now, Thomas, before the break we were discussing PAYE, right? Pay as you earn, or as you said, the actual term is employees tax,
yes.
Right? So if I am someone who perhaps gets paid fortnightly or weekly even, do I still need to pay PAYE?
Very good question again. A lot of people think that because the frequency of their work is irregular or only for short stints, or they get paid every week or 2 weeks, their situation might be different.
Yes.
In those cases, it still falls to your employer to make sure of what you should be paying in tax, break that up over the periods in which you work, withhold that from you and still pay it to SARS.
All right. So this is now something that your employer needs to do, right?
Yes.
Is there a way to verify that they are actually paying over the PAYE? And what happens if they're not?
Ooh, that's an interesting question, and often tough situations arise for employees because of this.
I can imagine, yeah.
So this is one of those reasons why, even if you are not necessarily categorized as somebody who should file a return, you should still file a return, because that's the one way you can make sure, for sure, that your tax has been withheld from you and properly paid over to SARS, because your employer will have put it in an IRP5 and submitted that to SARS, and that'll come up. If they haven't, it becomes very scary sometimes.
Trouble,
because
yeah.
Very much so. The employer could face criminal sanction, penalties, and the worst part about this is that you as the employee are still ultimately liable for that tax. So if it's not been withheld from you and paid over, you're still liable for that tax. Or even worse, if it was withheld from you and not paid over, you still have to pay that tax.
Oh my goodness.
So it is important to verify.
Very, very important. Thank you so much for highlighting that one for us, Thomas. For those South Africans who work in, the care economy, so things like domestic workers or those who do nanny work, or perhaps, things like gardening, do they still have to pay PAYE as well?
Certainly if they're above the threshold. Again, that 92,000 some change per year. And even though the answer to that is yes, this is still an area in South Africa where we see a lot of non-compliance. It is actually problematic. Because alongside the tax, which you might think an employer might be doing one a favor, if they just, they keep it under the table, they don't pay the tax. But alongside that tax comes UIF, which is the Unemployment Insurance Fund, and COIDA. If you get injured on the job, there's a fund for that too, that your taxes pay. Or, so if you're not paying your tax, your employer isn't withholding that, you don't have those benefits that protect you either.
Sure, that sounds very, very serious. Now, I want to move the conversation to, owing a debt to SARS. Now, if I owe SARS money, what debt collection options do they have? So,
you must remember that SARS fulfills a very important function in South Africa. They bring in the money to bankroll the country. So SARS has very broad and extensive powers here. They can go to anybody who holds money for you, like your bank, or owes you money, and they can get that money from them. They can take it out of your bank account, they can get it from your employer before it even gets to you. Alternatively, SARS can attach your assets, which means that the sheriff of the court comes, evaluates the assets you have, your furniture in your house, your vehicles, confiscate those and sell them at auction to make sure that your taxes are paid up. You have mechanisms to negotiate this with SARS and to deal with that, but if you don't, that's what can happen.
Sure, that's incredible. Thank you so much, Thomas. And in your line of work and in your many years of experience, in your opinion, are there certain things or improvements that can be made with regards to how the working class is taxed in our country?
This might be a disappointing answer, but we've had a really, really well-built SARS over the past few years, and I might kick myself for saying this later, but on the spot right now, I'd say that we've seen auto assessments not only implemented by SARS, but improved each year. And SARS is getting much sharper and sharper at making it easier for taxpayers to fulfill their obligations. Taking things from branch, bringing everything online, So I would say that what needs to be done is by large being done by SARS at the present moment.
Well, that's very good news to hear. Thank you so much for chatting to us this morning, Thomas. And TMS family, a very big thank you to Thomas Lobban this morning. I think he's definitely helped us understand our tax obligations better, and so we can go through this tax season a little more effortlessly. Stay with us. We have so much more to come on this Think Tank Tuesday.